Good afternoon, everyone. I am Kusum Dikshit. Welcome you all on behalf of CI Global Venture LLP. Our agenda for today is COVID-19, a challenge to survive, being fittest and agile is the key. We will discuss infrastructure, management challenges, and risk post COVID-19. We are CI Global Venture LLP. We believe in real, valuable, and sustainable solutions. We provide global management consulting and financial infra solutions. We indulge in business transformation, restructuring, diversification, cost optimization, and risk profiling. Along with this, we take up PMC, TEV, LE, and LI roles also. We have uploaded our corporate profile. For more details, kindly go through. It's on your screen. We have discussed in our last webinar, after a period of struggle, we always come out stronger. We acknowledged the fact that it's difficult to adopt technology everywhere in infrastructure. Being highly populated country, we have to see employment generation also. Our industry employ a large chunk of manual labor. Even our government is trying its level best to help out every sector. They have come up with various packages to reduce the burden and stress on the industries and people. As government cannot help each and everyone, we have to help ourselves. People are undergoing stress, depression due to job losses, having no money, future anxiety, hunger, etc. Recently, we have seen there are so many suicides people are committing, which is a highly depressing fact. We talked about making warriors out of entrepreneurs during COVID-19 as they are strong enough, can take up bigger risks, can face challenges better, and can motivate others to be positive. But as a normal person who is trying and struggling every day, it's important to keep in mind being fitter and agile is the key to survive. We know it's difficult. That's why we have gathered here to discuss few mantras to survive in the best possible way from the industry experts. On our panel today, who are contributing in their own special way to help people. Let's welcome Mr. Sanjay Dutt, Managing Director and CEO, Tata Realty and Infrastructure Limited and Tata Housing Development Company Limited. Next is Mr. Naga Prasad Tamala, Chairman, People Combined Initiatives. Mr. Arun Karambelkar, Board Member, Capacit Infra Projects Limited, Ex-President and CEO, HCC. Ms. Meetu Samal, Founder, Eminence Independence Director, Times Group Companies. Mr. Amit Roy, Director Insurance, PwC. And Mr. Alok Sapre, he is the Chairman and MD, CIA Global Venture LLP. He is the moderator for the session.
We do. So infrastructure basically is what? It is basically a basic system and services necessary for a country or an organization, like building and roads and all, a very basic definition, including oil, gas, energy, what name anything is infrastructure. And in India, large infrastructure is controlled by government, and also private sector is now playing an active role. But then normally, typically, private sector has remained as a contractor or EPC or whichever form of contracting is there. But now there is an element of development is increased. Feel bad, like suppose we have a patient at our home, then first thing we pray is not that he should run, but then we want him to revive. So another thing what I thought is, what could be definition of revival in real terms? Then revival today, I think, is the bigger agenda than maybe, I would say, the growth. One business, maybe any entrepreneur to that extent, where the top line does matter because, your growth is, literally could be seen by your revenue. But I think today, for the first time, COVID has proven again that, whatever size of business you are in, what matters is, are you able to really make something out of that business? Are you able to generate reputation and value out of the business? Are you able to put people in a sense that they trust you and also what you deliver is of qualitative nature? I think COVID probably has brought this thought process back into the system that maybe whatever we talked earlier in the books, is now really need to be implemented. I'm not saying it's not being done, but it is being done typically, and very rough word is scantily. Maybe it needs a popular, use of these things. So our industries have to change this perception when the public has to be really become more transparent, more open, more visible, and really following things not for record or statutes, but also for real sense, bringing in the public value, the governance, the corporate governance, typically what we call it, and which I'm sure we all are trying to implement in our own organizations. There is a time where we have to see the changes in realistic terms. We should attempt something which we have never tried earlier. Nobody knows, we don't talk much about the impact of COVID, but nobody knows about the future beyond COVID. The budget has been very pro-infra before COVID, but when we say pro-infra, it is a lot of projects declaration. I think the industry has to put the habit of finishing the projects also, which is another area where cash flows will be, we will discuss during the discussion more further, but then cash flows will become more handy once projects are getting executed. A lot of our problems are because stuck projects. This is a broad breakup of data on infrastructure. How many projects are there at the end of December 19 already there? So if you just make a rough total, around 9,000 odd, 10,000 odd projects are there ongoing on various sectors, which is a huge development aspect from India. And there are more in the pipeline from like railways and National Highway Authority of India. Some airport developments probably will be shelved off now, but they will still happen. And public sector, in fact, is putting in a lot of investments by themselves. And it has also last 2008 onwards, private sector has brought in a lot of money. And in fact, the stress in the industry has come partly because of the BOT highways, power plant has become a PPP board, and even some metro projects where, our some of the investors and the owners were okay, maybe geared up, like Tata is one of them, but not all of them. And then what has happened, the subcontractors who used to be 5-10 years back in 2008 have become developers. So they always thought that this is going to be a new business model, but they never realized the amount of risk they are taking. That's why probably we have largest number of NPAs. I'm not reading these figures. I'm just showing you the gravitas of industry and size of industry. 1,000 crore, but there are numerous projects. What we see in our cities like Bombay or Delhi or Hyderabad, corporation-run projects are less than 100 crores, which they never account normally in these data. But they are the one who create pain for us. Like when you cross the road, the cable trenches dug out there, or there are some other areas works are happening. A lot of money has come in India earlier also, and a lot of money was expected further. But things are very buoyant as far as the data is concerned. But then, as per our understanding of industry, says maybe industry may not be able to draw that much of investment now. Reason being, the valuations will drastically change, and now investors, already it is happening in few cases, they are going for more realistic valuation requirement. Modernization in industry has reached offices of Indian companies, have reached project offices in Indian company, but in work styles, there are certain plants which has come in last 20 years for major manufacturing, like when we do hot mix, when we do concrete, yes, it is there. But in terms of intent to put in modernization to use is still not there. We see somewhere the drones being used, we see AI being used, but they are only in the area where the thing could be done, but it is not yet generalized. There are marginal or substantial, rather not marginal, substantial gap in various practices which are required to be done in Indian industry for safety, health, and I would add also environment, which is a big lagging area. So leadership is one of the area which, probably one of the agenda today when we talk about management challenges. I believe that industry is the one where the bandwidth of management needs to be discussed and, be delegated more. We have a lot of engineers coming out. We have a lot of AutoCAD, typical designers also are coming out. But if you see employability and productivity, there is a big gap between the people whom we recruit in industry and whom we see the productivity out of them. Because our education practices probably are not very tuned to the industry requirement. They are more on academic interest. Also, one of the major areas of intercommunication between various agencies of government, like NHAI declares a road project, but the land is not available. So 3 years after investment, the project has nothing to show, and public thinks that there is nothing is happening. So same is urban, like we have seen in Bombay also a lot of projects have started, but then they're only dug out, we can see, but there is no progress. So we have taken various references. I think there is a role which industry has to play. That government will definitely come out and help, maybe, but it will be generalized help. It will not be a specialized help to an industry or a company. It will be generalized help. What we probably can do is help ourselves more, because businesses have always survived, I believe so, in all adversities. Yes, a few of them perished, few of new have coming up, have always come up. But at the same time, I think entrepreneur, basically the moment we say that entrepreneur is the one who can, make a risk. So reputation or the brand, what I think Neetu will also talk briefly about this subject later and more about her other ideas. But then, are we not investing money? Are we not a business community? Then why don't we think that whatever we are committing is a national brand first? It's a public service requirement first. Our image, when there is a pothole on the road, it is also blemish on an engineer or a construction company or engineering company. When the bridge falls down somewhere, it has happened recently, sees Bandra-Worli the ceiling as a landmark in India, but the moment they go to other side, the connectivity to the Worli and those sides, are then you are in a big jam. So you reach the new bridge very fast, but when you cross the bridge, there the contractor limit ends and the problem starts. That means the last mile connectivity is a missing link. We have in Gurgaon, we have seen rapid metro coming in, but the connectivity of last mile means people evacuation through autos or taxis have taken a long time. Same is with all railway stations and metro stations, typically, that you don't get last mile connectivity that easily. And I think this last mile connectivity is the area of our so-called famous Jugaad, which deprives us of a lot of challenges and innovations, which maybe sometimes Jugaad is good, sometimes, most of the time, it is not always good. So somewhere this is the area where probably we should go and think more about creating it.
We all know education is something very, very important for success in career. I'm not saying that all the people who have received good education are successful in career. And at the same time, I'm also not saying that all those who haven't received good education are failure in their career. But there is a strong correlation with good education and general success in career. And if you have looked at Malcolm Gladwell in his book Outliers has brought it out very clearly. Students who go to rich neighborhood schools, they have a head start when compared to most others. They can use the technology better, they have exposure to latest knowledge and skills. And this is resulting into a kind of extreme differentiation. They are taking the large percentage of economic wealth to their gain, and this is creating kind of economic differentiation, social differentiation, even to an extent cultural differentiation. However, if you look at be it George Floyd's death and subsequent riots in US, or these migrant labor barefoot walk in India, so it clearly reflects the kind of divide that the society is having. And the fundamental question we all should ask ourselves: can any society survive, last long with this kind of divide? And if you look at the root cause of it, it is fundamentally the quality of education one has received. And if we look at the present education system itself, it is failing more people than actually taking them to required levels. If you look at just India numbers, to provide that kind of education, India needs 2.26 trillion US dollars by 2030. Who is going to give that kind of money? Where from the money comes? If I also work with the government of India on trying to convince them this is very, very important. You guys need to bring out the framework that enables right investment into education infrastructure, because education infrastructure is very, very expensive. and it is very underutilized infrastructure. So this is the time all the industry leaders and important players in the industry need to come together and work with the people, the kind of skills they need, what kind of interventions are needed from now itself, so that it's not going to be a big suffering. These are the kind of contrasts. If I need you, I'm ready to spend any amount, and when you are in crisis, or when I don't need you, I don't even spend a penny on you. This kind of approach has to change at a fundamental level. Otherwise, we are not seen in a good light. The education kind of important change I am thinking and hoping that going forward there is going to be blended learning, a fundamental change. Children learn online, as well as there is also a possibility there can be experience centers in the neighborhood. They don't need to travel hours of to the school, and as a result, children will have best of the experience, as well as the online rich content-based learning possibility. It has brought us to everyone of our understanding that you can be productive sitting home. Now, almost all of us are sitting home and having this webinar. So, for this kind of realization to come, it took decades.
Treatment is always challenging because from employee's perspective, because employee always are the second commodity for us, not the priority. And women particularly are also one of the neglected area. But Oak Ridge schools, as well as your people combined, have been awarded repeatedly for best place to work amongst safest place to work for women. And how we do, one is okay, the award part, very commendable, but then how you really manage to do that? I think because one area where I think industries and infrastructure suffer is people management. For us, people management goes by, typically the stick or sometimes the carrot, but then there is no bridging, constantly for, bringing the employee up, train him, encourage him. Yeah, sometimes they need a pat on the back, as well as sometimes the tough feast also, but not that always they should be put on a tighter leash. So how you manage? I think the one of the area where you can throw some light about your management of your group, the people skill.
Here, important thing is these ranks and recognitions are just an outcome. We never worked for these ranks or recognition. So we only participated just at a later end out of it. Culturally, we were very clear. I always tell my team three principles: people, principles, and product. So in our thinking, people comes first. That's fundamental DNA. So as the moment when you take care of your people with so much of empathy, what happens? People put their best. Not that everybody is going to be a star performer, but it is his best or her best.
Another area where I would like to ask you is, the investments, like any other industry, has always been a challenge for Indian companies. Maybe last few years were a bit rosy, but then maybe different segments. Do you feel that this particular pandemic situation is going to change again for investment scenario, going to be for foreign investors? When I say investors, because the ratings are changing fast. Moody's are saying something. PwC is there with us. He will say something about industries. So it is changing quite regularly. So do you feel that investors' confidence will change again? It was anyway means not always consistent with Indian companies.
If the business fundamentals are strong, during COVID, after 15th March, Reliance has brought in 1.15 lakh crores as investment, as FDI. It is a clear FDI into the country during last 2 to 3 months. What does it indicate? Forget about Moody's ranking or XYZ ranking. People don't care as long as the business fundamentals are strong. So I am seeing a huge opportunity because India is 1.3 130 crore population market. So, and world over there is a lot of money. so much of money, they are actually negative interests are there out. People, even if your rupee dollar hedging happens and they get no return, only at the investment level also, they will be damn happy because their money otherwise earning negative interest.
Okay.
Government schools and the education that is being provided, or even most of the private budget schools also, it is very, very basic. So with that kind of approach, if we expect skills at a later stage in life, it is something like a mirage. It's not easy.
The issues what people had before this particular COVID thing triggered was execution challenges, which rose out of various cash flow issues and debt burdens or whatever it is, whatever are the problems. So I am calling it as an underlying condition. Government is trying to do, in case of COVID also, every government in every country, they are trying to do their best. They made some projections, tried to make certain quarantine facilities. We never expected government to respond to this particular situation so well. And whatever they have done in India is commendable. But ultimately, ultimate message is that if for individual, ultimately he has to take care of his own health. So similarly, individual companies and individual sector will have to take its own steps. So once you come out of that denial, acceptance is very bad, because when you accept something, you have to act. So today is the situation where we have to act. But today you cannot go on talking about, today maybe somebody will have to fight the fire, some immediate solutions, and that will depend upon the company in which situation it is, and everybody will have to find its own solutions for a temporary. But in the long run, unless and until your fundamentals are right, and unless and until your foundation is strong, you cannot jump. Now we have been talking in the industry. One is, migrant labor, but related with that, how to retain the people. Now, labor retention, generally, I mean, we were talking also for the management staff, engineers, as well as for the workers. But today people are talking about, migrant labor, and in that context, it is being seen. Now, how do you retain that labor force? Because that's a big number that you need. Now, any construction company or construction sector today, let them check last 10 years records. One common cause for loss of production has been shortage of labor. Now, shortage of labor is also needs to be, understood in different context. Now, this particular issue, when, all over the world, infrastructure industry was booming. India, with its own plans of, giving importance for infrastructure development and allocating good, budgets for that. Similarly, some other countries and like Gulf countries were also booming at the same time. Now, during that particular period when Gulf was doing well, industry here in India have suffered a lot, because people simply, left India, they went to Gulf for working, because, that's a big opportunity there. Now, that is also a migration. So what I'm saying is migrant labor and that particular issue, what we are talking about, needs to be seen in a little bit larger context, and not probably in the context of COVID or many such issues. This is a backdrop, yes, but we have to see this as an external threat. We have to look at it as something, which has come onto you, which was not anticipated. When it comes to enterprise level risks, generally my observation is that people are in a denial mode. Why people are in denial mode? Because there are two aspects to it. One is impact, and second is probability. Now, when you're talking about project level risks, there you see that probability bit higher, or you can see that something is coming or something can happen or you have experienced it. But probably the impact of that is not much. And when it comes to overall business perspective. But enterprise level risk, when you talk about, the probability is less and then you are in a denial mode. But the impact is very high. Now today you are seeing that.
Yeah, today the realization has happened.
Every single business is suffering and you are caught unaware because this is something one never expected. But the amount of time that you spend on engineering phase, when I say engineering, it designs of physical structures and then methods and equipment planning and project planning and method planning and all that stuff included. So it's an engineering phase. So if you do your engineering phase better, then obviously you have better control. But in India, now Indian context, I'm saying that people spend less amount of time on this particular phase, right? And people then struggle and do firefighting mode when it comes to construction, and then you have lots of surprises. That's what I'm. Similarly, when when it is a business, construction or infrastructure business or a construction company, I would say that there are two major activities. If you break it down into two separate activities, I will break it down into two activities, major roles or major activities. One is, business acquisition, and second is, business delivery or execution and delivery. Now, you will see that, most of the businesses had good order backlog, I said. Order backlog, people were, satisfied with. You may not be satisfied with, but, I would say it was not bad for most of the people. People were struggling at the execution phase, right? And the issues could be many. Now, what I'm trying to say is that when you are at the business acquisition stage, there the type of and quantum of risk that you assume are too high.
Correct.
Unless and until you address your risk at that particular stage, it is very difficult for you to do a proper execution. But having worked with lots of foreign players, joint venture, when I used to negotiate joint ventures, wanting outside people to come and work here for now the risk assessment, how they do it and how they look at it is far too different, and sometimes you can call it robust also, much more robust. You have adopted, many companies have adopted some these practices. I'm not saying no. People in Indian construction companies, larger players, they have adopted certainly these practices. Now, so basically, business acquisition and business, execution, we are talking about risk management at the execution level more than generally, at an acquisition level. So that's basic point what I wanted to bring about as a good and better practice. Now,
Correct.
What do you do in NEC? You have to lay your focus on that. And since the business is going to be big, very big, you don't have to really rush, and you don't have to over aggressive. Now, when you're saying cash flow is the king, cash is the king, everybody says cash is the king, but it starts there, no? It starts right from the acquisition stage. Now, for you to sustain and grow further, what you require is your robust systems. And that is only, it's going to help. And more delegation, people who can manage your business better. And that's the future. There are companies who are managing these businesses, not just in India, but, abroad as well. So we have all kinds of companies in the country, but this is for those who are in, growth mode and then cross certain threshold. But now if you look at the history of the, in India, how the infrastructure industry has developed, is that typically the owner is the government. what construction industry and the infrastructure industry we are talking about, 90% cases, these big companies, we are not the owners of the project. Okay.
True.
So the owner is the one who has to project himself, and say, come forward and, either take the credit or take the blame. One. Number two, what happens is that when you construct a dam and when you're gone, your nameplate is not there.
Government property.
I have to tell you that we have built, 65% of the nuclear power stations in this country. It's a matter of pride, but I have to tell you this, no?
Correct.
Or you have to tell you that more than 30-40% of the hydel power has been constructed by, XYZ company, or HCC, or more than 70-80% of hydropower in Bhutan, HCC is responsible for. But we are
and
into a
these are the
different
conversations that
No,
need
that
to
is
happen.
so what I'm trying to say is that only after this development project started coming in the country, or the construction cash contracts moved on to EPC, and contractors started assuming larger responsibility right from designing or engineering to the execution, then there was a realization, and like you said, that you also feel a part of the infrastructure industry because you're the user. So there has been a big debate in different companies, especially in our company in HCC, and we used to say that who is your actual user,
True.
or who is the client?
The
Is he
stakeholder, in fact.
the
The
client
stakeholder.
whom you are serving? Is he your client? No, he is not your client. It's ultimately the user, and that's changed the perspective of the people, their behavior, how they deliver, and how it matters to the end user.
I think the portfolio is of different projects together. So how do we assess this risk and how do we manage? Yeah.
In fact, actually, the better practice for a construction company or an infra company which is managing different projects, there are multiple projects. Okay, so you do the risk assessment at a project level right from its acquisition to delivery stage. That is one, and like Amit said, you do it on an ongoing basis, and there is a review and quarterly review and so on, and then you roll it up to the business enterprise level as well. But when you are reviewing this at a little higher level, as a strategy, you also need to understand how you develop your portfolio. And now this portfolio word, when it comes, people are familiar when financial matters are being discussed and somebody tells you where to put your money on
Correct.
which fund and all that. But for a projects also, or bouquet of projects, when you look at it as a portfolio, you need to develop different criteria for yourself. One could be like sector, in which sector you want to play, how much of percentage you would put in one particular sector. For example, roads or hydro or any other different kinds of sectors. You can say building sector, how much will you take, how much geography wise you will go. So that is another way of doing it. How much business will you client wise, how much
Correct.
business you give to the take from central government, how much business will you take from state government, how much business will you take from public versus private. So there are various ways of doing it, and the
Correct.
business which you are, or the way you are doing it, I think you need to develop these kind of questions for yourself.
Correct.
And then you qualify your portfolio against that, and then you need to also assign certain percentiles depending upon your experience, go on reviewing it and then change it, because some you have taken risk because the market was booming in Gulf, and you have gone there, but how much of percentage business you should come from that particular sector, geography, that you need to review yourself and decide.
That all of us are actually in our own right veterans in the infrastructure industry because we've been the users of the space. So being a reputation and reputation risk consultant, I just thought that, let me not color my opinion through the observations that I personally have, but let me do a quick research. Since I had a conversation with Alok, I undertook a quick research with people at CXO level across industries. So whether it is ports and logistics, aviation, mutual fund, banks, even journalists, people of my fraternity, consultants. Variety of people, in fact, politicians, and just try getting, a diverse opinion about what people think of this industry and what's the kind of perception that this industry enjoys and what kind of reputation, hence, that it has. One thing that clearly came out that everybody believes that this industry is highly critical for the growth of the economy, and not only Indian economy but world over. So infrastructure is the central point for ensuring that the overall economy grows. However, this opinion then was labeled by terms like red tapeism, bureaucracy, slow in decision making, too many stakeholders, and hence unclear in terms of who's the responsible, who should be held responsible for a certain kind of a delay. So there is no one single accountable resource around. So all these things, very disappointingly, mentioned that the response to my question that, what is your perception of the reputation of industry, good or bad? Sorry, good or poor? Response ranged from poor to very poor. Right? So that's the challenge. Everybody thinks it is highly critical, but the reputation largely, of course, there were people who felt it is good, and I will talk about that aspect also in a while. But largely, people felt that the reputation ranged from poor to very poor. And the reasons were given very clear, multiple stakeholders, so no clarity in accountability. Government's priorities change regularly, like you highlighted, Alok, with changing government, the whole plan undergoes a change. And of course, this indefinite length of any project, right? So you just don't know by the time a project is conceptualized and by the time it is implemented, it becomes obsolete, and you really need something more. So you really don't really enjoy the fruits of that infrastructure support that you've received. Having said that, my personal experience and all, having traveled to various geographies across the world, I really believe our airports, ports, all these are fairly good. Some of the infrastructure, like in Bombay, Delhi, airports are fairly capable, good, compared to many other airports worldwide. Similarly, there are various other aspects. So one example of that would be, I just was reading and I figured that there is this concept called logistics performance indicator, and highly important because logistics is one area where, again, infrastructure, in the infrastructure space, it plays highly critical role. Typically when you talk about infrastructure, all we can think of is construction. Again, very, very important, but then there are so many more to it. Like, we are able to even exist and survive in a situation, absolutely unexpected situation like this of pandemic, because of the industry, right? Like, if telecom industry hadn't really done what it has done, which is a critical part of infrastructure industry, I don't think, a basic survival was also possible. Forget doing these kind of conferences, right? So definitely industry has done well, progressed well, and is, has its own merits. Similarly, something like a logistics industry, which is catering to a small demand like delivering matchbox to my house, to transporting big defense missiles across the world, right? So definitely critical. And I was reading the logistics performance indicator figure, which was given by World Bank, and India scores 44 on 167. The 167 countries were studied, and India scores 44, which is not bad, right? So definitely we're doing some great stuff also, etc. Have deepened our negative perception. Important for the industry players and critical industry players like HCC, L&T, Reliance, Adani, all these groups to come together and also, do something for the industry and come across with a positive perception, because it influences our daily lives. And if we are told that, this is how this industry is actually making our lives better, some things that we are taking for granted will not be done so. And I think somewhere the industry will also be able to generate that positive perception.
Post-COVID, if I have to put in my $100 into any sector, I'll put it in infrastructure. And why I'm saying that is, typically, if you see how all the nations have reacted, on the economical side, on the larger economical issue, they have either gone on the supply side or they have gone on the demand side, right? On demand side means you give money to people. So typically, if you talk about US, they had given a lot of money to people so that the consumption start and people start purchasing, and unemployment allowance was given to the extent of, I believe, $600, something like that, huge money. Now India cannot afford to do that, so they have gone on the other side, and which is the demand side. And I still recall the day our finance minister actually announced the stimulus package. There were both positives and negatives. But one gentleman who really struck a chord with me is our own Mumbaikar, and Mitu, you stay in Powai, is Mr. Hiranandani, and he was talking about something very basic, that in a country like India, no matter what you want to do, you have to start with infrastructure. Unless and until you have great roads. Today, you spoke about the gas cylinders getting delivered. Naga took the migrants through buses to different parts of the country, and it's all because of the good work that people like Arun and Alok have done over the years, which has got neglected and nobody spoke about it. I think that's where the positivity comes in my mind, is that if you see, obviously, every nation will look at a supply chain kind of a situation now, and for whatever reason that we all know, China was the center of the supply chain, heart, whatever you say, whatever you call it, the main epicenter of supply chain management was there in China. Now people would like to de-risk it, and in this de-risking, if any country has got the maximum possibility to actually give a fair beat of competition to China, it's our own country, right? India. Because we got the space, we got the skilled manpower, we got sufficient amount of consumption market, and most importantly is that thanks to the software developments, now the APIs are all over, right? You think of anything and there's an API integration which is available. So it's a great time, and I personally believe that though most of my friends keep talking from the consulting background that you don't really put your dough on infrastructure, but if this country has to come back, we have to put our money on infrastructure, and which is what the government used to. They at least started with that. I'm not saying that it's foolproof at this point of a time. They started with that. Possibly now with this time set, we have to encourage people to fail and experiment with something.
I think very well said.
And even in infra sector, if you can encourage people to fail, and if the government gives the support, if general people as a whole give the support and encourage people to learn out of failures, we might emerge as a new country altogether. I will like to take the name of a country which is not really mentioned for always great things. But if you look at Thailand, in the amount of providing manufactural support to everything, their infra played a big role, and almost silently. And they competed to the likes of Singapore and South Korea. It was not easy for them, but they could do that, and they could get into big time of exports. If you look at that, possibly last 10 years, whatever activity we have done on the infra side, uh, I would not say it has not been enough. It has been enough because we needed that kind of basic infra also. But we should possibly get a little more micro. And I am sure, Alok, Arun, you guys are experts from the sector. You will speak much more on this. But rather than providing similar kind of opportunity or focus or money towards everything, can we decide on 2 3 micro things on which the country can actually gallop? Because this is also one sector which provides employment across all strata. Now, be it blue collared, be it white collared, I think the amount of jobs that got created in India last 15-20 years, yeah, nobody talks about that. uh, I think
And
now
both.
what are the, yeah, sure, please.
No, I'm just both skilled and unskilled. Both
Correct.
kind of employment.
Yes, yes. Now suddenly, insurance companies have, and insurance people, agents have become like sanitizers now. Okay, you will start loving them, and you will welcome them actually, for understanding insurance. So I think on a serious note, I think the awareness level has increased like anything for the insurance companies. So that will get lot of new set of customers. But insurance companies have to change a lot, and there the paradigm shift has to happen. Because insurance companies are like I said, sales driven, number driven. Customer comes last like this. Thanks to COVID, health awareness and the understanding of risk will go up by many notches. An insurance company product process, the way you service your customer has to change.
So it was a very nice and positive session. Thank you all the panelists, and I would like to request all of you to please come up with at least one suggestion to support our agenda, which is like, as we are talking about all the challenges, and this COVID-19 is a challenge to survive. Being fittest and agile is the key. So we are looking forward to have some suggestion from you for the young generation. As you can see, there are a lot of suicides, which is really shocking for people like us and various others, because people are really not able to take this thing positively. It's very difficult to be in this kind of a situation. We have never been into lockdown like this. You guys are experts, can face things, as you have already faced a lot of things, and you are good at it. So we would request to have some suggestions which can help others and people who are working, who are employees, who can face it in a better way, in a positive way. So looking forward to it, please.
The only way to overcome the current crisis is look beyond the crisis and hook your vision to the opportunity beyond the crisis. That's what helps you to cross the crisis situation.
Importance that the government is giving for this particular industry, the sector as such, and then the money that is being committed, for this particular sector. If you look at all those numbers, the entire world is actually looking at India as a place to come and work. It's not just within India, because if you look at globally elsewhere, how many countries are really growing their infrastructure? How many countries are able to commit these kind of numbers for their infrastructure? Probably only India is the place where it is going at the pace in which we are really watching it today. This is a great place to be in, and like Amit said, if he has to put $100, he would put on infrastructure sector. That is very true. It's very true. I mean, the COVID situation is a short-term situation, and you have to look and take a view with longer term. And in the long term, India story, growth story is there. It's not going to vanish, and you just cannot, stop it. Whatever happens, you will have to commit. This government, that government, whatever, whichever things happen, you will have to keep spending money on infrastructure today in, in the country for next at least 10 years. So this is
well said.
and there are lots of opportunities. There are lots of gaps in terms of resources, skill set, people, equipment, materials, whatever it is. Because Alok would know when there are a huge number of projects, in a particular locality, you don't get anything, neither people nor equipment nor material. So whatever area you are associated in with this particular industry, in any kind of supply chain, whether it is people, whether it is material, whether it is equipment, whether it is contracting side, or whatever it is, there is a huge opportunity, huge opportunity. So whether you are consultant or whether you are an executioner, I mean, it doesn't matter or which sector are you. So it's a huge opportunity. So it's a very nice place to be in, and the time also is right, I would say.
As they say, adversity also brings in a lot of opportunity. And experiencing this pandemic-like situation currently, I believe I have really seen this statement come true. Learn to collaborate, be open for innovations, and very important, communicate.
If the story goes like this, I think, trust me, that in India you would see 5 times of the money coming to supply chain, and obviously that has to come to infrastructure in some way or other. Then you would have seen in last 10 years. Next 2 years could be quite a very different story for the sector.
I think message to both entrepreneur that when you talk about agility is basically not only movement but also getting prepared for better movement with lot of developments. So I think that is the key for you. So learn from good practices, try and adopt, cut your cost. Employee is not the only cost, but a number of things which you can cut down.